and welcome! Warhammer The Old World, first look at the rules. Yes, I am so excited for this. Okay, so for those of you who haven't seen the article on Warhammer Community's website today, we have got our first glimpse of the Warhammer The Old World rules. We've got the turn sequence, we've got within that some ideas about how the different rules work, and we got what looks like a shiny new piece of artwork featuring high elves fighting against goblins, which has real kind of Grom the Paunch Eltharion overtones. But yeah, okay, so stick with me. I'm going to quickly go through all the things that we have learned about the Old World rules from the Warhammer community today. First things first, turn sequence. Strategy phase, an entirely new phase. Then movement, shooting, combat. That's our 4 phases. Within that, we've got sub-phases. But what's really interesting, and this is going to cause, I think, all manner of dissension within the Grognard Warhammer ranks, it's turn, 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 turn. So each player gets a turn in the strategy phase. Each player gets a turn in the movement phase. Each player gets a turn in the shooting phase. Each player gets a turn in the combat phase. Yep, it's the Age of Sigmar rules. Oh my god, this is going to cause so much drama. It's not even true. Whether this is a good thing or not, I will wait until I've tried it. I mean, it works in Age of Sigmar, so there's no reason it shouldn't work here. But I think it's a somewhat controversial decision. That's putting it lightly. Even now I can see Dark Elf armies burning in the distance. Strategy phase. Okay, so the way this has been explained is this is where you will do all of your kind of special abilities. So you might do the things like the stupidity test for your stone trolls. You might release your night goblin fanatics. You might do stuff like toot on a special anti-flying warhorn, which is the first new magic item that we've had sight of for Warhammer The Old World. This is a Bretonnian magic item called the Falcon Horn of Fredemund. But yeah, I mean, this is actually something I think that sounds back to the days of kind of the 5th edition magic book, where there was a particular magic item that allowed you to kind of scare off flyers and prevent them from using the flying rule. In the Vampire Counts book, back in 5th edition, there was a Call Winds ability for the Von Carsteins, which again grounded all flyers on both sides. But yeah, so this is all stuff that happens in the strategy phase, so I'm guessing we must either dice for who gets the first to go first in each phase from the beginning of the game, or maybe there's a strategy rating, or maybe it's take it in turns. Who knows? I'm kind of intrigued to find out how that's going to work. But so each player will get a chance to do shenanigans in the strategy phase, find out whether or not they've suddenly magically managed to win the game, and this will also be their opportunity to cast some of their magical spells on it. So we've got, within this kind of preview of how the turn sequence works, we've got a preview of how the magic rules work. Magic, you may have noticed, does not have its own phase anymore. As we had already heard, it's going to be spread out across the game. Much like, as I previously mentioned in one of my earlier videos, happened in 3rd and 4th edition 40k. Psychic powers in 3rd and 4th edition 40k were dependent upon when they said to use them. Quite often, like a lot of the ones in this book, they were at times like the shooting phase, or the assault phase, or the opponent's assault phase. Quite often, like some of the ones in this book, they were at times like the start of the game, or the start of the turn, or, again, for Witchfire powers, in your own shooting phase. It would seem that throughout every phase, your wizards and other magical types like priests are going to be throwing shenanigans at each other in different ways. Strategy phase then is for your shenanigans type spells, so ward spells, hexes, things that kind of cause problems for your enemy, like presumably giving them things like -1 to hit or -1 to their leadership, and things that make your troops better, like giving them +1 to hit, or making them stubborn, or maybe raising new skeletons up out of the ground. But, so, that's the strategy phase. Next up comes the movement phase. And again, this is very much, it would seem, like it was in the earlier editions. You declare charges, you resolve compulsory moves, then you move everything else. The only difference, I suppose, is whoever gets to go first in this phase declares charges. Then they make their charges. Then they make all their other moves. Then their opponent gets to declare charges and make their remaining moves. So yeah, there's going to be a kind of a whole slew of stuff moving around the board during the movement phase, which is going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to trying this out. After that then, and also at this point, movement-based spells. So again, we've got mention of some of the spells that we might see, like Gork or possibly Mork Wants Ya, which is a classic orc movement spell, which is back, which is great. But so, movement spells, Van Hel's Dance Macabre, I guess, will also happen if it's in the game in this phase. It will be kind of a make your charges, make your moves. Then cast spells to do additional magical movement shenanigans. So really kind of stuff shooting all over the board, I can only imagine, in this phase. Speaking of shooting, on to the shooting phase. So from this, we then ascertained that you do your shooting, you do your war machines in this phase, and you do your magic missile type spells. You begin to get the feel for it. So each type of spell kind of corresponds to the phase in which you will be doing it. But you get to do all your shooting, then your opponent gets to do their shooting. So you've already done kind of mass charges, then shots start flying back and forth across the board, and finally we go into combat, where I can only assume that all the various combats that have smashed into each other during the earlier phases are now resolved. And combat-based spells are then carried out. So things like your Hand of Dust, I would guess, or other, physical contact-related spells like... there was a Touch of Change, a Wind of Change one, I think, that involved the Chaos Sorcerer touching their opponent and turning them into gribbly Chaos Spawns. Likewise, this will be the phase where you get to use, I'm assuming, like magic weapons and stuff to, again, pull shenanigans on each other. But that's then kind of the end of the turn. Anybody who's going to flee, flees, and who's going to pursue, pursues, and then we go all the way back to the next strategy phase. The other thing we've caught a glimpse of in the rules, and this is exactly how magic is going to work. So, again, I'm only interpreting from the little bit that they've put in there on this, but we saw that one of the spells that was revealed, a Tomb King spell, had to be cast on a 7-up. So, again, I guess magic-wise, my desperate fond hoping that we'd get another Winds of Magic deck is replaced by more magical rolling. And again, it looks to be casting values, much like we saw from this edition onwards. It doesn't look as if it's going to be leaderships. Like, I was wondering if it was going to be leadership tests, like the psychic tests in 3rd and 4th edition 40k. But no. Casting values, presumably therefore much like 6th, 7th, 8th version fantasy, wizards will generate a certain number of casting dice and away we'll go throwing them across the board. Final just kind of little tidbits that we saw from this was it makes mention of leaderships being slightly different. Leadership tests are apparently going to be a bit different from how we've previously seen them, and it makes mention of people doing tests on modified or unmodified leadership. So again, this perhaps hints that much as in pretty much every edition of fantasy prior to Age of Sigmar, the result of your combat will modify your leadership test, is my interpretation of that. I'm getting excited, in case you hadn't guessed from the pitch of my voice and my frantic manic hand wavings. I'm really looking forward to seeing what else Warhammer community reveal about the old world in the coming weeks. Like I said in my previous video, February 2024 looks to be the release date. I'm really looking forward to hopefully seeing some new models for some of the other armies, and also just getting an idea about what rules they're going to be using. Warhammer community team, if you are watching this, please just give us a chart telling us what base size we need to put our stuff on for each unit. Just give us a rundown and I can start building new stuff now, ready for next year. But thanks very much for watching. Please come back on Friday when there'll be more old world type content. I'm going to be going and do a video talking about the 6th edition event that I went to. So come back for that. In the meantime, thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Oh, by the way, rumoured, after the Bretonnian and Tomb King starter set, Orcs vs Empire. Bye.